Hello and welcome to the Work for Change podcast. It's Jean.
And John. We have a different intro now.
Yeah, we've gotten rid of the... It was like our intro kind of became like, you know, when like back in the olden days when it'd be like, behold, Lawrence of France, the Duchess of Dutch and
It was getting too long and we no longer enjoyed it. So we changed it up. But welcome to episode 81 of the Work for Change podcast, the first week back from our break, and what a time it's been since we've been gone.
What a time to be alive. I'll tell you that for sure.
Seriously.
Yeah, we weren't expecting to come back to something so like intense and serious. And of course, like in today's culture and climate, you can't really predict what it's going to look like at the end of the week, let alone 3 weeks away when we did our last podcast episode.
Yeah.
But we were kind of planning on coming back with like a fun broadcast, just kind of talking about life. And then the original plan was that we were going to have all new branding and all that stuff by the time we came back. But we've decided we're going to do it right, branding wise. And so we're working with a graphic designer. He's working on stuff. It's just going to take a little bit. And we have come back with a, pretty punchy episode. Yeah. With our friend Hudson.
Yeah, so we had our friend Hudson, who he runs the Instagram account Constantly Varied Fitness. And we talked a lot about what's going on with CrossFit, with basically everyone leaving, and with the issues people have with diversity and the problems that have there. I mean, there's a lot, and there's a lot to unpack. And I really think that there's some really good conversation that happens in this episode. And so like the reason that we brought, not the only reason, but one of the reasons we brought Hudson on is because he is a man of color. And so we wanted to hear someone's perspective that wasn't just a white guy.
Yeah. And I think it's got a very unique perspective because he is a person of color within the CrossFit space whose parents were both in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Like there are so many like points to wrestle with and work through in that. And so it was like definitely he had some great things to say, great insights. And even like, you'd think, well, my parents were police officers, so I'm all Blue Lives Matter. But also like I'm half black, like, so Black Lives Matter. But like he equally believes both, and that's not a contradiction. Like, and there's a lot in this episode where we talk about like you don't need to be on polarized sides of the fence. Like, I don't know, it was a super interesting conversation.
Yeah, and then obviously we talked about the current mutiny of CrossFit and everything that's going on there. So we hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, and we are recording this on Monday. This is going to go out on Tuesday.
So if anything else happens,
if the world changes by then, we tried to do this as soon
as we could.
Yeah. But here we are. Hope you guys enjoy this episode 81 of the Work for Change podcast. We're back. All right. Well, Hudson, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's something that we've talked about for a long. I mean, here's the history of me and you. Let's just get into that right now. A couple years ago, I reached out to you.
Our eyes first met, and it was love at first sight.
It was. I reached out on Instagram, and I was like, because I would follow your page, Constantly Varied Fitness, and you would always tag San Diego in your posts as a location. I'm like, dude, this guy's local. I need to reach out to him. Let's do something for the Open. And this was like the 2018 Open or 2017 or maybe 2018. And I was like, hey, I was doing YouTube videos at the time, which just on a hiatus, right? I'll be back. Don't worry.
3-year hiatus.
Yeah, just a couple month hiatus. But I was like, let's team up. Let's do something from the Open. And you're like, absolutely, man. Just hit me up anytime. And I never hit you up.
I feel like that's how most interactions go.
Yeah.
With social media.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I have to take more action? Nah, I can't do that.
Yeah. I just was hoping that I'd bring it up and you'd say, do it at this time. I'm like, okay. No, I'm just kidding.
So with Constantly Varied Fitness and the meme page, did you start it as a meme page? Was that your plan? Or like, what was your goal starting that page?
So it never started as a meme page. Originally, when I started getting into CrossFit, so I started CrossFit back in 2013, and when I did, I had a million questions, and CrossFit was still evolving so much, and it was like, okay, hey coach, how do I get my first muscle up? Because they wouldn't really program muscle ups a bunch, every now and then. If you don't do it, you do this progression.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what else can I do to get better at muscle ups? And they're like, keep trying muscle ups. So I kept trying muscle ups, and it didn't really work, and I was like, okay, well, eventually I did
Hold
get
on.
one.
What you're saying is that's bad advice?
I mean, for some
You
things,
change everything.
some things just do more of it. It works. But for the most part, like I was just not getting anywhere really, and I just had so many questions, and like I was hungry, and the gym that I was going to specifically was up in Riverside County, and it was literally all soccer moms. It was all like literally every single class had like 5 strollers lined up. I was I was 19 when I started. I was the only kid. Like everyone was a parent, and so I was kind of like just on my own, and I was just thinking like, okay, I want to get better at these things. They kind of just wanted to get fit and stay lean. So I was looking up a lot of things, and I was like, okay, everything I look up, I'm just going to kind of like share and help people with. But this was before that. I had just happened to take my level 1 just because, and then I told the owner, and he's like, oh, want to start interning? I was like, oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So like I just happened to start interning and then coaching, and then everyone kept having the same questions. How do I get better at snatches? How do I get better at muscle ups? What shape for my workout? Yeah. How do I get double unders? So then I was like, okay, I'm going to make a YouTube channel where I shared things. And if you watch my old videos, literally I watched some the other day and like I couldn't finish them because they're so horrible, and, like so uncomfortable to watch.
That's how Jean's are still.
It's true.
But eventually, like I was like, okay, I was actually on my way to regionals one day, and it was like I had the YouTube channel for like 2 years, and I was like, I need to, make an Instagram to go with this to kind of promote the videos and things like that, and share other thoughts that I have that I don't want to make a whole video about. And then I just happened to be showing snippets of those kind of videos, and I was like, I'm a funny guy. I made like one meme, and it like skyrockets compared to like the 2 likes I get on everything else, and I'm like, okay, let me do more of this, and then now it's more. Now with the feature of stories, I can just post, okay, new video here, but then keep my feed what most people wanted to see.
That's super cool. That's a pretty organic way. So the page has been around, the Instagram page has been around since 2015?
I believe so, yeah, mid 2015.
Dang, you're one of the first CrossFit memers out there.
Yeah, Make Wad's great again. Psh, dude, he doesn't know what he's doing.
He sucks.
Yeah, he needs to step aside for the OGs, okay?
We don't like him actually at all.
Just kidding. We've had him on the page.
I remember the day, I remember I hit like 20K. And I was like super pumped, and I took a photo, and I kind of like just was blowing off John, and I was like, he's just some guy. He's posting all these memes, like he's gonna get burnt out or whatever. And then I remember like as I hit 22K, he hit like 40K.
Dude,
yeah.
So
it's crazy how he posts like. Well, especially now with everything going on, it's been like so much a day.
Yeah.
But even before that, it's like 4, 5, 6, 7 a day.
I remember I was trying to compete with him at one time. He was posting on average 9 to 10 a day, and I was trying to do like 4 to 5 a day, and I was like, just like trying to think everything I could possibly could. Okay, double unders. Different things about double unders, and it was just it was hard to compete.
He thinks in memes. I think is like that's it.
And he's got 2 teenage daughters, one,
2.
like, and so they are always like, here's a new meme, here's a new meme, here's a new meme.
Yeah.
So he's cheating.
He's a
I just want you to
cheater.
know he's cheating.
There's
We're
people that'll send me
exposing him.
stuff, and then I'm like, oh, thanks. Maybe.
They just wait a couple weeks and then maybe they forgot about that meme.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's just so bad, you're just like, no.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that's most of them.
Yeah.
This is so funny, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
Wow,
no.
tripping up and scratching yourself on double unders, so
original.
Yeah.
Never heard that one
Double
before.
unders, more like trouble unders.
Oh my gosh. We need to end this podcast now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the actual reason that we wanted to hit you up, and like I felt like this was not at all what we had planned. So this is our first podcast back we took only a 2-week break, not super long, but we were planning on coming back, just kind of having some fun, and then in that 2 weeks, the world has completely flipped upside down.
Oh yeah,
right, and it's been really interesting being in the CrossFit space because I would say that diversity has been an issue for a long time, but it's like, now correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like it's been an issue, but people would always just kind of like, it's not that big of a deal. We'll just sweep it under the rug.
So I don't want to say it's an issue because one thing that I keep thinking about is like when I think about like, so this could be there'd be a whole deeper meaning to this, but it's like I think about hockey, there's not a lot of African Americans doing hockey, not a lot of diversity in hockey from my experience and what I've seen, and I've been to some of the local games, and it's like there's like lots of Canadians and lots of Caucasian Americans or white Americans.
Just call us white.
But then it's like you see basketball and it's vastly majority African American. So it's like people use the excuse, well, it's just like anything else, maybe just African Americans themselves have some other type of way of thinking that doesn't want them to do CrossFit. But then it's like, okay, but what is that thought process and why is that?
Yeah.
And then again, like we mentioned before, we might go off on a lot of tangents. I'm already thinking.
Let's do it.
17 steps ahead.
Good.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, hockey. So one of my cousin did hockey, and he's like me. He's half black, half white. Just to give context, but he did hockey. But his dad was like a high-end football coach, and his mom was also like a high-end like physical therapist, and they made good money. So that allowed them to have opportunity to do hockey because hockey's not cheap.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. I heard someone bring up like, a lot of I don't know who was saying it, but they were kind of talking about like CrossFit and why there might not be much diversity is because like if you look at like football or basketball, you need the ball basically.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you don't need much more. And hockey is the same thing, or golf or something like that. You know what I mean? Like those are like really expensive to kind of get into. And so I thought that's a really interesting point, I think.
And then I'm already losing train of thought. So I mean, I think when it comes to CrossFit, I don't want to say diversity is an issue, but it's the curiosity. Why is that the way it is?
Yeah.
And if like deep down, if you look at a lot of things, there's things that kind of make sense when you tie them together. So going back to already getting really deep, we're going right into it.
Let's go. Let's
back
go.
to when civil rights, first became a thing.
I feel like, sorry, I'm going to interrupt just real quick to say that I feel like the people who are not willing to go, it's not even that far back, but people are not willing to go that far back. They're like, no, that was then. Like, this is a different issue today. And like the people who ignore the fact that it's the same issue. It's just like what used to be so blatant and rampant has now just become under the surface, So anyway, keep on going when we go back to civil rights.
And then just really quick, just to piggyback off that, I was very, very, I will say, ignorant to a lot of things a few weeks ago. I grew up very privileged. I'm not going to go and state that I came from a hard upbringing or anything like that. My parents, and to give even more context about me, my parents are both in law enforcement. So I kind of have a lot of different perspectives, a lot of things that are going on right now. So both of them made really good money, really good benefits. We lived in a nice house, lived in a nice area. They didn't always live like that. My parents both came from not a lot of money at all. But like when you're going back to civil rights and when everything that happened and they finally gave people of color the right to go ahead and do these other things and have the same equal rights, on paper, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden, as a society that's taught to treat black people as lesser, that all of a sudden everyone's going to go, okay, cool, yeah, we're just going to brush off, me, the way I've treated you forever or things like that. Like, people still had that kind of feeling towards them. They've still been trained to feel that way. They still have thought that way for centuries before that. And so now, talking about civil rights, if you do, like, I've been doing a ton of research recently that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Like, banks weren't giving them loans to get mortgages and to get
crazy.
businesses. And so, like, they're forced to work these really low-skill jobs that make such little money in these houses that white people own, and like they keep them in this tight-knit community of just African Americans. And even though it's a loophole in the system, that's why there's lawyers, because there's so many intricate pieces of something, and lawyers will go and say, well, there's this, well, there's that. And it's like, even though on paper you'd look at it and go like it's black and white, but there's so much gray in the middle of it. So when it comes to people saying, well, maybe black people just don't want to do CrossFit. Well, really, why is that the case? Maybe they don't have the money to do CrossFit. Okay, they don't have the money to do CrossFit. Why is that the case? Maybe they come from the less opportunities to make money because they've been in a society where they've had to work hard to get out of it. And one thing I want to bring up is about a conversation I had with this guy named Anthony on Instagram. And we've been having this conversation for like 7 days now in a row. Like, it's been crazy. But he brings up, like, I lived with a family of 10 people in a 3-bedroom house. We didn't have a lot, but my parents taught me the right morals, and I joined the military, and my sister now has like a bachelor, doctorate, or something, they're doing well now, which is awesome. Now the thing is, when you're in that type of society though, and things are so chaotic and people can barely make ends meet, people start doing things to make ends meet. People start selling drugs. People, unfortunately, start stealing. Now, anyone can have the thought process to think this is not right, but when you grow up and you see your parents struggle from day one, then instantly it's kind of like, well, I don't want my parents to struggle. I'll just sell some drugs. It's not hurting anybody. Everyone wants drugs, apparently, so I'm just going to sell them and make some money, but then they get arrested and they get put in the system, and then now they've had a criminal record. Now it's going to be harder for them to get further along in society. So deep down, like, not saying that all African Americans don't come from money. There's a lot of people like professional athletes that were able to get out of the system and get money. And now there's people like LeBron James that are building schools in his hometown.
Yeah.
But like, why can't we all as society see that and go, why is there impoverished towns, whether they be black, whether they be white, whether they be mixed race? Really, I've been thinking about this myself, and it's like, why let anyone be at a disadvantage when there's some people that live in $10 million homes? Should they not live in those homes? No, of course they should live in those homes. They probably earned that home and they've worked for that. They were just given that money, most likely. They probably built a business or worked their ass off their whole entire life. Awesome. But something needs to happen with tax money, with some kind of assistance from the government to make it to where we can go and help these other people, because who's to say all these people that are over here and have these less opportunities can't be great and accomplish a lot of things. And if you have, X amount of scientists, but these kids over here have horrible school systems where they can't even learn about a lot of these things, and the teachers don't really care and help them actually learn these things, then that's cutting off scientists that we could have to fix, diseases and things like that. So that's a really long answer to why CrossFit. I think.
I mean, it does make sense. Like,
well, and that's the thing with that is there is no short answer, and that's the problem, right? Like, if there's no short answer, there's no way you can just tell someone on a podcast like, this is it. Like, because even with that,
I figured it out, guys.
Like, even with that long answer, there's still so much more that goes into it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why is there a diversity problem in CrossFit? And the answer is, well, there's a lot. Like, it's like with anything.
Yeah.
And so it's been really interesting because, again, it's been something that you've heard kind of people talk about, but it's always kind of been, there's reasons. That's what it was always like, oh, there's a couple reasons, but there's nothing we can do about it. And so it's been really interesting with everything going on in the world, how this has affected the CrossFit space, the lack thereof now, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of wanted to go into everything that has happened recently, with the, there's been so many things. I don't even really know where to start.
I think like one of the things you were talking about, and then maybe it'll spring the conversation through, is talking about people who come from like low income housing or whatever, and your friend Anthony, that you were talking about, and my brother and I both, like, we've been very vocal about it. Like, we came from assisted living housing, very below the poverty line. Ramen is a regular lunch. You know what I mean? Like, macaroni and cheese with hot dogs cut in it, which nothing's wrong with it, but that was just our regular meals and stuff, just because it was inexpensive to feed a lot of kids that. And like right now I live in a beautiful 2-story townhome in Santee, and it's like a lot of, and I don't know, like, how much of white privilege, if you will say, like, played into that. Like, the fact that I felt comfortable in a white evangelical church that was very much, a lot of people looked like me. By being comfortable there, I was able to learn a skill with playing guitar and leading worship. Through that, I was able to get certain jobs, and then my job was able to change into graphic design and video, and it's like all because I felt comfortable in this environment. Where a lot of people saying, like, well, no one would have denied that to you if you weren't white. But it's like all those other things. Like, do you feel comfortable? Can you see any representation of yourself on that stage or in that platform or on this thing? And it's like those little feelings that people don't think about, that maybe no one's being overtly racist and saying terrible things to you, but do you have a place that you can call home there? Do you feel safe there? Do you see yourself represented there? And it's all those little things that you really can't say this was the exact moment, even though a lot of people do have that. But like, it's those things that you just don't think about that kind of lay beneath the surface. You talked about both your parents being in law enforcement. And I think that's a super interesting thing to segue into this, because a lot of people think, what's your take on Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter? And do they need to be in opposition?
So I want to make sure, like, I stand for the Black Lives Matter movement and what that means and what that organization is trying to do. Do I believe that anyone's life matters more or less than mine? No, I will say that. That's where I want to kind of go from there. So when people say, especially just right now, let's say black people were not the talk of the town right now, and we weren't talking about all of these things, that injustice and things that are going on for all these years. But let's say all of a sudden, life was back to normal, and then all of a sudden, cops are getting killed left and right. Everyone's like targeting cops and doing that. Then I could see someone going and saying Blue Lives Matter. But here's where the issue is, and why a lot of people are arguing online from people that stand for the Black Lives Matter community, is the fact that you go and say, as of right now, if you say Blue Lives Matter, if you say All Lives Matter, if you say White Lives Matter, that's not the issue at hand, and that's just trying to water down what we're trying to do. So Anthony, the last DM we were talking about is I sent a message kind of talking about the difference between a racist, what racism is, what an anti-racist is, and kind of dissecting that a little bit. And then he kind of messaged me, he's like, well, what about homeless people, and no one taking care of them? And I'm like, that's a horrible thing. I want to fix that. Again, a few weeks ago, I was ignorant. And it was like, I was kind of in my own little bubble, but now I want to make a huge change with the world and my society, my community. But that's not what we're talking about right now. That's not the issue. Let's handle one thing at a time, because if we all scatter our efforts everywhere, then nothing would get done, because we'd all be too spread thin.
Yeah.
So when people say, especially when it comes to Blue Lives Matter versus a race saying life matters, is that they have the choice not to be a police officer. So that's where a lot of the problem is. People say Blue Lives Matter. Do I think cops matter and they're important? I want to keep them around. Do I want them to go away and anarchy to happen? No. I love what my parents did. I love that they decided to put their life on the line to protect and serve and keep their community safe and help others. I'll always commend any cop for doing that. But the issue is when they aren't wearing that uniform, then they instantly are safer. They instantly have, especially if they're white, have a much higher chance of not being targeted by police and having more opportunities in life, because they have that white privilege. Now, when you're a black person, and if you can look up the article, I believe it's called A Decade of Black People Being Killed, or a Decade of Unjust Killings. If you Google it, you'll find it. And it talks about all the black people have been killed unjustly in the past 10 years, which is about 50 of them. And it shows this person was killed in their bed. This person was killed entering a grocery store. This person was killed, and it literally makes no sense. And that's what the issue is. And that's what everyone's talking about. So when you say Blue Lives Matter, no one's arguing that. It seems like what a lot of people want to put blanket statements over everything and say, cops are racist. That is not true. They want to say, protests equal riots. That is not true. Just like the complexity of why CrossFit's not diverse, and there's so many things about it, just like Black Lives Matter movement. Do I want riots to happen? No. Do I want black people to get killed unjustly? No. Do I want cops to get killed? No. I don't want any of these bad things to happen, but the thing is they are, and that's the reality. So we have to figure out why this is happening and what to do from there.
Yeah, and like you, I've been doing a lot of research and learning a lot in this past few weeks. So I've kind of made this known on my Instagram and stuff, but like I was like a person, I don't think I ever wrote it down, but when I would see Black Lives Matter, in my head I would think, no, all lives matter. Because I felt like someone saying Black Lives Matter meant my life doesn't matter as much.
And that's what a lot of people think.
And so for me, like me and John we went to a protest yesterday. We were at a march, right? And a Black Lives Matter march. And so for me, I have obviously switched my thinking, and like the way I see it is just because someone is saying Black Lives Matter, like just look at the words that are used. It's not saying Black Lives Matter more. It's not saying Black Lives Matter most or anything like that. It's like Black Lives Matter. And so for me, it's really difficult to understand now that it's like I've opened my eyes to it. It's like how someone could at all be upset by that. By someone saying that, because if you look at the history of America, from slavery to Jim Crow laws to everything else, Black lives have not mattered as much. It's just a fact, right? And then kind of going into, Jean was talking about like white privilege. I remember I used to hear that and I'd be like, that's stupid. Like my life, like mine and John, our life was hard. My mom was a drug addict. We were taken away from her. And like we had all these issues. And so when I would hear that, I would almost get upset. Because I'm like, you don't understand how hard my life was. But the fact of the matter is that none of those problems were because of my skin. And like that's when I think of white privilege, it's like you have had less problems. It's not maybe not even you've had extra help or anything like that, but it's you've had less problems because of the color of your skin. And so that's another thing that I've been learning about as well, these past few weeks. And so it's been really interesting, and it's been hard, man. Like I'm not going to lie, and I'm not trying to make it about me, but it's like, it's been a very uncomfortable few weeks. Like learning
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my
learning
gosh.
a lot, maybe realizing that the bubble, like you talked about the bubble I lived in was stupid and like just not realistic.
Yeah.
And like dismantling that for myself, and like almost like, it's like almost like I was what Jim Carrey in that movie, The Truman Show. Like when he gets out, it's like that's what I felt like happened. Like not the best analogy, but like I like got out and like, oh, this is real life. Like you were living in this bubble, and that's not the reality of it. And so like for me too, I've been learning a lot, but at the same time, like though it's been hard and very uncomfortable, and there's been nights when I couldn't sleep, like I've had anxiety attacks because of everything going on. I know for a fact I'm a better person because of it, And like I was thinking about when we were at the protest yesterday, that was the first protest I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And so like I have had a life to where I was never so mad about something that I ever had to even protest, And there's a lot of people that don't have that same privilege, if you want to call it that, right? They've had a lot of things they've had to protest for because they haven't been able to be treated fairly.
Yep.
And so there's just so many things that I've been learning these past few weeks, and I really do think it's making me such a better person. And I think, like, kind of to bring this full circle, I think that's the reason I'm so hurt and bummed about the response that CrossFit has made. HQ at least, that CrossFit HQ has made to all of this. Because I kind of want to shift the talk to CrossFit and the things that have been going on. The reason for me why I think so many people are, de-affiliating right now, and like there's this whole like mutiny almost of like CrossFit, is because there's a lot of context that goes into it. And the thing that's weird to me is that CrossFit has stayed so silent on this huge issue when they're almost never silent about anything. Mm-hmm. Like they stick their nose into things that it's like, why are you worried about that? And it's so strange to me that they have been so silent on this.
What do you think? Like, so during a couple, like last week, there was Blackout Tuesday. It was just, I'm not saying like this should be a simple thing, but if there was ever an easier way or a day to just say, you're right, I stand up for this, it's that day, right? You know what I mean? Everyone was posting and they were super silent. Like what in your mind, as you've been a part of this organization with CrossFit for 7 years or whatever, like doing it at least. What is your like initial thoughts regarding all that? Just CrossFit silence and.
Well, like right off the bat, when you call yourself an inclusive program, like you would think that would kind of literally mean anything. And then if anyone said, well, what about, people are saying that, you're not letting this group in. What do you say to that? And you kind of like don't really make a stand. And then it kind of means something. But the thing is, especially with what Blackout Tuesday did, is it put everyone on the spot. Yeah. It was like there was no putting your head in the sand. Yep. It was either you said one thing, you said the other thing, or you said nothing, and that was saying something. Yeah. So that's like and it was like everyone felt uncomfortable because like, oh well, I don't have to. Just my social media. You're saying I have to post on social media to like just make a stand for where I am, and it's like, not really. No, you don't have to. You do whatever you want. It's America. It's freedom. Yeah. And like you have privilege as an American to do whatever the hell you want as long as it doesn't go against the law.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's where it was, because especially when you have, maybe you don't make the post, but you have friends that are like Blackout Tuesday and making all these statements and doing all these things, and then you don't make a statement, and your friend's like, well, I feel really strongly. This is like a serious topic. Mm-hmm. We're not picking who's our favorite football team. Mm-hmm. We're not picking what's our favorite flavor of ice cream. We're like, this is a lot of people's reality in life. Mm-hmm. If you don't make a statement, it's making a huge statement on like how you not see other people, but how you accept their reality, and you just blowing it away and thinking that, oh, no, I've never seen that. That doesn't affect me, so it must not be real. It must not be a real issue. On paper, look again, here, everything is equal. So everyone's making a big deal of this.
Well, and the thing that's important, I think, to point out is like this isn't just some random person that has 50 followers. This is a huge organization that has people of color that are part of the organization that do CrossFit. And so the fact that they didn't say anything, and again, for me, the reason that it's so like damning is because they didn't say anything when they always have something to say. They always have something to say about. Greg Glassman has made a huge fight against not drinking too much water. He's made videos upon videos upon videos about it, right? I'm sure it's a great cause, but no one cares, right? Like, no one is caring that much about that. But this is something everyone cares about. And it's such a simple thing to be like, we stand with you, and like, we will fight against racism, right? Like, am I saying you should do it even if you don't believe it? No, but it's like, that's not asking too much, I don't think.
Yeah, he probably just tried to find a graphic designer and then realized that he fired the entire
Did you see that one meme, Make Wise Great Again?
Yeah.
How you do a spin on this? Oh, that was good. That was real good. Something I wanted to mention on top of that. Well, it's also like, I want to know your guys' opinion. What if they made a statement on Black Guy Tuesday and said that we do not want to get into this, or like we are, like they made a vague statement, like we are an inclusive program, that means everyone, like what would you have done then? Do you really know what you, like, is that essentially the same thing as not saying anything?
So I've heard like a PR person say once, it was like a YouTube video or whatever, and they were like, whenever you're in like heat, right, and people like, do not address the accusations head on, but instead continue to reinforce what your values are. So if someone is like, oh, I heard that, a black person came to the gym and they felt like some coach said they were a racist or something, or said a racist slur. Then, like, if you're in hot water, you just say, CrossFit stands for the inclusivity of all people. So you're not, like, addressing that exact thing and bringing more focus to the bad situation. You're, like, trying to just reinforce who you are and not feed the... so that is a common PR move. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'd also be disappointed, though. Like, it wouldn't be, like... I don't know.
It would still pretty much put you in the middle.
Yeah, it would just, at least it would have been something, though. You know what I mean? Like, at least if they did, like, kind of gray font with a blacked out thing saying, we stand for the inclusivity of all people. Great. You did something. Like, you at least did a little bit.
You acknowledge what was happening versus just being silent when you post 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah, and I think that I would have been disappointed, but I don't think I would have been like, we need to cancel CrossFit or anything. I would have been like, that's kind of tone deaf. You could have done better. Like, I know that I saw you commenting on a lot of people that actually used hashtag Black Lives Matter, right? Because I know a lot of, and I understand if you're a white dude, it's scary to use that for the first time. At least for me, because for a long time, I felt like I'm not allowed to. Like, out of respect, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to take over this hashtag or this movement that isn't for me. So I didn't use it for a long time, but as I've learned more over the few, honestly, weeks, I've realized that's not what it's about, and like, it is for everyone to use to bring awareness to the situation, right? So I understand that people were afraid, like a lot of athletes and stuff like that were kind of talking about it, but not. But I mean, yeah, I think if they said something that was super vague, I would have been like, well, at least they did something, like, especially because, like, again, I'm always going to go back because I think context is the most important thing, is like, CrossFit isn't silent about anything ever. Like, they will always speak their mind, and knowing Greg Glassman, it's always like very abrasive. He's not super politically correct, as I'm sure we'll get into some of the other stuff that's happened. Like, he is known to not give a crap, not give a heck,
Yeah, have zero filter.
And so the fact that, like, there was nothing, it was, I used it, I made a video about all of this. The silence was, like, almost deafening, because it was like, hello, like, everyone is talking about this, and you are remaining super silent. And so it was just...
Yeah.
That's the thing, is if you were, like... Everyone was saying this. Everyone was making this post, so it's like you had no opportunity to not make a decision. It's like, one person you're in a gym and 2 people are having this discussion. Well, you don't have to get into it, but then if the whole gym is having a discussion, like, you naturally feel pressure, and if you don't, especially if it's a very serious topic, people will naturally kind of think of you one way, because those are your, not morals, I don't want to say, but like, your beliefs and your thought process, and then people go, oh, well, maybe I didn't think the same of you now as I did before, or something,
Yeah. I think I'm not sympathetic. That's not the word I'm looking for, but CrossFit, like, the history of CrossFit, it was a blog I'm not telling you for you guys, for anyone who doesn't know who's listening. Like, it was a blog Greg Glassman made where he was putting workouts out online. And then I can't remember if it was law enforcement or if it was military training. But the first level 1 was it was either a police officer academy or military. They sent Greg an email and they were saying, hey, can we please get certified in this so we can start doing our people? And Greg's like, you don't need to be certified. You just need to do it. He's like, no, in order for us to get funding, we need some form of legit certification. So then Greg Glassman created the level 1 and certified some guy, and then he was teaching them level 1. So that's kind of like the history of like CrossFit and the level 1 seminar and all that stuff. And so CrossFit had a huge history and backing in law enforcement. And so I kind of see the idea of like they don't want to take a stance and alienate who so many of their original people were, which was law enforcement. But again, that is, it falls short because like we explained, like saying Black Lives Matter does not say blue lives don't. Or is it?
That's the thing. It's not a blanket statement.
Yeah.
It's not saying if you support protesters, you support riots and violence. Like inside both groups, they're not doing things right either.
Yeah.
And that's why like this whole thing is coming about.
And like that's where like, you know, people love dichotomies. They love polarization. They love either one thing or another. But like there's so much gray in the issue. There's so much gray. And gray is where compromise and solutions and collisions and all that messy stuff happens. But it's like that's when you go like, oh, I'm actually looking at my enemy, if you will, eye to eye, and we have a lot more in common than I actually thought. You know, like if you're hanging out on both sides of the room, you're never going to have that. But when you're in the middle and you're meeting and you're arguing and you're fighting and you're looking at each other eye to eye, that's where the ability for compromise happens. And I think so many people are afraid of that. And so they just stick to their like, you know, chamber of Facebook, which the algorithm is like, oh, man. You like Republicans?
Yeah.
Like, here's a whole bunch of Republicans in your feed.
Yeah, you like, what's his name? Ben Sharpeau?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro. Like,
Ben Shapiro.
Here's a whole bunch of Ben Shapiro and people who think like him. And then you go, everyone in the world thinks like this. And then you see someone who doesn't, and you go, you must be an idiot because everyone else on my feed thinks this way. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, without the ability to connect person to person, and freaking like COVID just made it so much worse because we have not been talking to each other face to face at all, and then all of a sudden this thing happens and all you know is 3 months worth of this person's internet feed. And so it's just like, I don't know, I just feel like it was a huge just toxic thing that was just bound to explode.
Yeah, and I want to move on a little bit because obviously that was a big deal, but that's not why people are so upset, right? Like that was a part of it, and I think it's an important part. But I wanted to talk about the Rocket Community Fitness Now, their post that they sent to Greg Glassman. So for those of you that might not know, Rocket CrossFit was a CrossFit gym for, I think it was 10 years. So they were an affiliate for 10 years. So I always bring this up, but that means for 10 years, they paid Greg Glassman $3,000. So they have given him, in effect, $30,000, right, over 10 years to be a CrossFit gym. That's a long time, 10 years, right?
Not including all the coaches there who had to get level ones.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? They've paid a lot of money to this man, right? And the owner of that gym, her name was Alyssa, I believe. She sent a really long email. I'm not going to read that. But it was basically pretty much a lot of the stuff we've been saying.
Worried about the branding.
Yeah, disappointed. They haven't said anything because, again, they're always very vocal about everything. All of that stuff, right?
I feel I'm sorry to cut you off, but real quick, I feel like that's like so respectful.
Yeah.
Not be like, I'm done, like, you know, leave. It's like, hey, I don't think we know this is going to work together anymore. These are all of the reasons why I think that, because like that's the biggest thing is like everyone wants to get defensive when they hear something negative about themselves. And like something that I learned as a coach was like, I've been coaching for 6 years now. I don't think I'm the bee's knees. I have so much more to learn. If you put me next to Ben Bergeron, I know nothing. Mm-hmm. So it's like always being able to take criticism and maybe you didn't do something right. Okay, what can I do to get better at?
Yeah. So she sent this long email. She did say that I'm de-affiliating, so maybe Greg Glassman was upset with that. I can maybe see that being a thing. But again, they've had a 10-year relationship, right? And so his response, I'm just going to read the whole thing, to her was this. So it says, Alyssa, I sincerely believe the quarantine has adversely impacted your mental health. I won't speak for Jeff Kane, who was the
CEO.
CEO. Was he was the CEO of CrossFit?
He was the CEO.
Now he's not. Okay, so he was really high up there. But I can tell you that you are delusional in thinking that anyone, even for a second, thought you were the conscience of CrossFit. The very notion is cringeworthy, because apparently in the email she was saying, like, they used to say that she was, or something, like the conscience of CrossFit. Like, if we lose you, we'll know we'll be doing bad, right? And then he goes on to say, you think you're more virtuous than we are. It's disgusting. Your self-professed brand wizardry has been tolerated but never seen as thoughtful or effective. But certainly, you're doing your best, or certainly manipulative. You're doing your best to brand us as racist, and you know it's BS. That makes you a really crappy person. Do you understand that? I'm censoring him, but you get the point. Do you understand that? You've let your politics warp you into something that strikes me as wrong to the point of being evil. I am ashamed of you, Greg. Right? Okay, so the reason I wanted to bring that up is because I think all of this stuff is important in understanding why there's this, mass exodus of CrossFit. And so the reason that I think that email is so telling is because, again, this is someone who has been a gym owner and has paid CrossFit thousands upon thousands of dollars to be a part of this community, right? And the way that he responded, again, he's always been kind of abrasive, kind of a jerk. Everyone kind of knows that, right? But to respond to someone like that, who is asking genuine questions, and he never even mentions Black Lives Matter. He never even mentions, he doesn't mention anything. And the email she sent him was very long, right? A lot of things he could have talked about. He basically talked about none of them, insulted her, and that was it. And I think that that's important to understand, because this has obviously made its rounds, and a lot of gyms have seen this, right? And I think that speaks to a lot of the owners of these gyms. They see this and they're like, you just put yourself in her shoes very easily, right? Say you've only been a gym for 2 years. Like, what does he think about me, And so I think that is just really, really, honestly, it's embarrassing. Like, this thing right here has been, for me, what I've seen has been, I would say, the most embarrassing thing. Is because, again, this is the CEO of CrossFit. Now, I think a lot of people that don't do it don't understand that he really doesn't speak for anyone. Like, most people that do CrossFit think he's some crazy old dude that just kind of runs the show, as he likes to think of it. Mm-hmm. But anyone on the outside looking in is going to see that and be like, everyone that does CrossFit's a terrible person. It's sad.
Well, it kind of goes back to where, like, everyone's been saying, everyone realizes, like, you don't need him, because if you drop the name, you can still call your gym all these other things. And there's a lot of gyms that have done it successfully, like NC Fit with Jason Kalipa, and a lot of other gyms out there. I don't know, but I see them all the time pop up on my feed, where it's like, you can be CrossFit's a great way to get your feet on the ground, because you do believe in their methodology and you do practice their things. But once, so I will say he does a lot of good things. He's been doing a lot of research and trying to prove all these, or disprove all these other things that are funded by big sodas, other corporations, to try to discredit the benefits of actual exercise. Just be like, oh, if you have type 2 diabetes, just do this, and if you take this pill, you can keep drinking your soda and this and that. But Greg Glassman's trying to make a change on a large scale, and I think because that's kind of why he's so big-headed and he thinks he can't do no wrong. But yeah, it's now literally we don't need him for anything. CrossFit's nice because it's okay, I'm going to another state. Let me look up CrossFit gyms. Okay, that's going to bring me more money that way, especially if you're a brand new gym. Mm-hmm. But now everyone is kind of established. And one thing someone brought up to me, because I was also curious, how are we going to, everyone's doing something right now. I've talked to so many people, everyone's they're making an app or a website, they're sharing on Reddit, these are all the gyms that de-affiliated, so if you're going somewhere, you can know where to go. But, brain fart. But, in this, but now, because of Yelp, we're able to type in CrossFit, and a lot of people have left reviews on Yelp and Google that said, I love this CrossFit gym, it's my home away from home, or I love the functional fitness, I love the Metcon. So literally you can find where the other places are.
Yeah. I mean, and that was a more common way to find. I mean, that's the big thing is people say oh, I look on the affiliate map. It's I didn't.
I never have.
I look on Google Maps. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's how when I went to Austin, I worked out at CrossFit Chikaru. It was Google, when I got to Austin, CrossFit near me. Mm-hmm. And I think if enough people are leaving reviews oh, this is CrossFit gym, oh, this is CrossFit gym, oh, that'll still show up. That's the interesting thing, and that'll get navigated later in life. Is like or later in time, like how do you find what's the key word you're going to look for? Is it athletics? Is it strength and conditioning? Is it blah 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 blah? But yeah, I think the thing is that email sucks, but it's not why everyone's outraged. You know what I mean? Like that is a tip of the iceberg of a history of like just not considering people as people,
or people under you too.
Yeah, people under you, like,
or people that are even your peers. Like if you look at what he did with the games a few years ago, completely dismantled the whole thing. Right? Didn't care about anyone else that was doing that. Like got rid of regionals.
When we had Mars on the podcast, he was saying, Mars and Heber, he said that he was out in Iceland filming and came back without a job.
Yeah.
Like he didn't know.
He was filming for CrossFit?
He was filming for CrossFit.
Wow.
He came back and then they were like, you didn't hear the announcement? Like they let everyone go. And he's like, I don't have a job. I was just in Iceland. Like it's just crazy.
There's been so many different instances of that, right? Of like unbridled power, because I'm pretty sure he's 100% owner. So it's like no one can, like he does what he wants. There's nothing anyone can do. And so like that was, remember when regionals disappeared? Like that was a huge deal. People were like, this isn't right. It feels like Greg Glassman has way too much power, because even Dave Crasher, you could tell he was not happy about it, but he couldn't do anything about it. And so then there was that. But then around the same exact time, everyone from HQ is fired. And there's that whole thing. And so there's been a lot of things of people being like, is everything going okay up there? Like no one knows what's actually happening, right? And so there's been a lot of those things. And then the most recent stuff has been put in the spotlight, and all of these issues that people have had pent up, or concerns that maybe they've had as gym owners, being like, my brand is connected to this. Do I want to be connected to it anymore? And with the things that have gone on, a lot of people have decided, no, I don't want to be connected with that anymore, because there definitely were positives being a CrossFit gym, right? Being found in searches, people just understanding what you do before you step foot in. There's a lot of reasons why people would want to be affiliated.
Yeah, drop-ins.
Yeah.
Like saying, oh yeah, I do CrossFit. I am at a CrossFit gym currently.
But now,
that'll be interesting.
Is it worth that, being connected to what he said? And a lot of people are like, it's not. Yeah. And so the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. This is kind of what I've been saying, is the tweet that he put out there. Now there was I'm just gonna read it. There was a tweet that he decided. So it was from the Institute for Health Metrics and Education. And it says, racism and discrimination are critical public health issues that demand an urgent response. # Black Lives Matter. And then there's text that says, racism is a public health issue. And then Greg Glassman responded to that and said, it's Floyd 19. So, obviously conflating George Floyd's death with the current pandemic. Now, is that so terrible, like the worst thing that anyone said? I don't think so. I think that it is racist, and I think that it's not right at all. But like, if that was the only thing, would all of this be going on? Like, if, say, he was a perfect person before this, I don't think so. But with all of the context beforehand, and then seeing this, again, all the silence that's been going on, people are like, this is ridiculous. Like, you can't make a statement, say Black Lives Matter, but you can make this joke, right? And I know that he was kind of saying that he's been sick of how this organization is handling health, and he was trying to like stick it to him or whatever. But it's like, dude, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, why would you think that was a good idea? And so that is the tweet that kind of was heard around the world that so many people are upset about. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, the reason I think it had so much power is because it's literally things that are affecting everyone's life in America right now, because everyone's been on quarantine for 3 months, and like, everyone, like, unemployment is through the roof. Gyms are closing. Like, the quarantine has affected so many, businesses, and I'm interested to see how like the stock market goes, and like how like people as consumers like go back to normal life. Because like, I'm not buying anything. Before this even happened, I was kind of getting more towards like a minimalistic type approach towards like everything I do, and like I'm now even more that way. So like, I'm wondering how people are gonna like businesses are going to reopen and things are going to get back to being more normal. But it was like, you know, it was a very touchy subject with coronavirus, and some people are dying because of it. So some people do feel that deeply. And then like everyone right now is, you know, losing friends and coworkers and having arguments and really crazy discussions over like what happened with George Floyd. So it's like combining those two and belittling them so much and like not really taking it serious, I think was the big issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I part of me, like, I don't know. I'm wrestling with, I mean, I'm not wrestling with the fact that it was wrong by any means. I wrestle, like, I think I'm more empathetic. Like, I have a very, like, empathetic heart. And so to imagine something that someone has built over their lifetime and to see them ruin it in a couple seconds, like,
that's the thing, is that's not what happened.
I know. I mean, I know that he has a history of it. You know what I mean? Like
of long history.
A long history of irreverent, terrible. Yeah. I equate him, like, we had a gym discussion where they were like, the coaches in the Facebook chat, in the Facebook group, Dark Side members was like, hey, in light of recent events, how do you guys feel about moving forward? What, like, we want to know the pulse of the gym. Because if everyone, I don't know, if they just wanted to know, how are we going to approach this, knowing where everyone is in the gym, you know? And when I was basically like, hey, I think that we need to unaffiliate. Like, you know, like me and you, my brother, both were saying that. And I equated him to, like, he's like a bully who, when things don't go his way, he takes his ball and leaves. You know what I mean? Like, and like, it's evidenced by this, like, haphazard attempt of their Twitter or something, or Facebook, where they're like, hey, let's have a discussion for what's going on. And then the moment, or Instagram, and then the moment someone, like, went against them, they're like, block.
Yeah, they were blocking
and they were blocking people, like, right and left. And it was just like, yeah, you are making continual mistakes. But there is, like I said, I don't know. It's something that maybe I'm too empathetic towards it, but it's like I don't think that he should be the CEO. Yeah. I don't think that should continue. I do feel somewhat like,
I understand where you're coming from.
Like,
but
this
again,
was built over years, upon decades, you know, of research and science and all that stuff. So all those elements, for it to be thrown away so quickly, I'm just like, man, you know.
I mean, I wonder if it's going to get thrown. I truly wonder, because have you guys seen that Google Doc going around of, like, all the gyms that are de-affiliating?
Yeah.
It's like, have you seen it recently? I don't know. Like, last time I saw it was like 400.
Yeah, last time I saw it was in the 300s, but so you probably saw it.
With perspective, like, that's not that many compared to the affiliates, but obviously some more will, a lot of them probably aren't on social media now. They're probably, you know, doing a lot of their own things. Like, they have to manage their people and coaches and stuff, and they're probably like, you know, they're like, I'm not going to add the Google Doc because, you know, with the whatever. But I wonder how much of an impact it is going to be on if they are around or not. Maybe they have enough affiliates, they have enough backup revenue to kind of do some other things, still have, like, certifications of some sort to still be able to, like, okay, you can have this cert and then go coach whatever, I don't know. But on top of that, like, one thing that I think I saw in Craig Ritchie's video that he pointed out was, like, him being the sole owner, and people are talking about him not being the CEO. Well, then if he's a full owner, he can't get voted out, right? He can't get booted. So he could sell the business. Now, who's going to pay him a huge lump sum of money? Does someone want to give him money and, like, kind of support him that way? But it's like, how could they start from scratch? So I'm very like, all the other, like, personal trainer certificators right now are jumping for joy because they're like, okay, cool, we're going to be bumping in a couple months, couple years.
Yeah,
it's true. Because I was just recently talking about, like, if CrossFit isn't an organization, my CrossFit level 1 doesn't mean too much, right, in an organization that doesn't exist. So then I was like, all right, well, then if I still want to coach within the functional fitness space, I'm going to need to get some, like, you know, ACE or NASM or something like that. And so I think a lot of people who level 1, level 2, you know, like, they're probably like, well, I've got 10 years experience, I've got 6 years experience in this, like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of another thing that I'm like, it's just, time is going to have to tell. Like, I can't tell you how it's going to solve itself, but it is like, is there going to be another certification that goes, we certify in functional fitness? You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like, what does that look like? And will that become but that's all conjecture. I have no clue.
All right. So there's one other thing that I definitely want to talk about. It's interesting because all of this stuff has come to light at the same time. but I do think that it's important. And so that was a recent controversy between a few athletes. And so in particular, there was a group chat. Anyone correct me if I'm wrong with anything, please. Okay. There was a group chat.
Wrong.
It was a Slack, right? But there was a group chat with a lot of different misfit athletes at the time. Misfit athletes. And I think it was called scores. And so basically they would just share their scores on the workouts and say how they were doing. Now, in particular, there are 3 athletes that are kind of at the center of this the reason I'm even bringing this up is because this happened like days before this whole thing blew up with the George Floyd thing with Greg Glassman. And
But
I know
you got announced like the same time though.
Yeah,
Like,
it got
everything-
It
everything
happened
popped at
actually.
once.
Yeah, it actually happened a good amount of time beforehand.
Yeah.
And now, so the reason I'm bringing this is because you were pretty vocal about it, and I thought that was really good that you were, and I really appreciated how vocal you were because I really think that if people weren't, nothing would have changed.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Not excited to talk about this topic, but I definitely want to talk about this topic just to like kind of really explain my thought process.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so there's group chat. So there's 3 different athletes. So there's Jessica Griffith, Travis Williams, and Chandler Smith. Now, for context, Chandler Smith is a black man. He is an Army. Is he in the Army?
he's in the Army. Yeah, I don't know
He's
what
still in the Army,
rank.
right?
Yeah,
I
he's
thought
still
he
in the
wasn't.
Army.
I
I think he is. I think that's why he's able to do CrossFit is because he was able to petition the Army to, you know how they have like Army football, Army, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he was able to make Army functional fitness.
Okay.
And so
That's
he's
cool.
a representation of.
So he's a black man that does CrossFit. He was at the games last year. He's incredibly fit. Him and Noah Olson are very good friends, right? So in this group chat, one of the women I think did really well in one of the workouts and shared that. But then Jessica Griffith replied with my N-word, right? Not with the hard R, but like still she said that. And then there were a bunch of texts. No one said anything. Jessica Griffith is a white woman. She is not black by any means.
Well,
right?
there was the one, you know, Chandler kind of did
No,
that.
yeah. Chandler was
emoji.
He sent an emoji, like kind of like questioning, like, what?
Did you just say that? Yeah.
And then there was a bunch, and then Chandler came in and said something to the effect of,
Y'all really gonna act like?
yeah,
you know,
like. You know, like, is everyone aware that Jessica just used that word? You know, like, and so he said that, and then Travis came to basically to the defense of Jessica and said, I must be too white privileged to understand why that's an issue. And then he goes on a few text rant, basically like getting mad at Chandler for being upset by that.
and then leaves the conversation.
Well, yeah. Well, he went on and said, like, it's ridiculous that you're giving this word any meaning. Like, it's only hurting you because you're letting it hurt you. And it's like, Chandler's a pretty chill guy, and it's not like he's just going to get upset for no reason, right? But so all of that happened, but it was pretty confined. No one knew about it, right? Now, to Misfits' credit, when they actually heard about it internally, they let go of Jessica and Travis.
Yeah. Part of Jessica doubled down.
Yeah,
That's another thing. She was like, "Hey, if you're really getting offended by what I said, like you got bigger fish to fry."
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And she also said the word again.
Yes,
and then
she
again. She said it
She
3
said
total
it 3
times.
times. I
Yeah.
could not. Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys need to find this because obviously it's hard to explain a text thread. But it was like she doubled down a bunch of times. Then Travis was like defending her. And the thing that makes me mad, and I'm getting a little bit heated, but there were like 15 people. No one was at like being like, "Yo, Chandler's right. Like maybe don't use that." They were just like watching.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. And then no one talked about it. And then 10 days later ends up getting leaked, and it became a big deal. But again, to Misfits' credit, from what they've said, they got rid of them right when they found out about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's
like a week before everything.
10 days
exploded.
before. Yeah. But it got put out there, and Travis basically got mad again, right? He was like getting annoyed, like people shouldn't be upset about this and all of this stuff. And he recently finally made a post being like, I made a mistake, whatever, right? But what Jessica did was she deleted her Instagram, and I still don't think it's back. Now, again, the reason I'm bringing this up is because this happened right around the time, or like it got put out right around the time everything else was going on. So people were just like arguing
edge.
about race. Yeah, they're on edge, arguing about race already. And then there's all of this other stuff going on with the underlying fact of it's not super diverse, right? And like that being an issue. And so like I'm just curious about like when you first saw it, because I just remember you seeing it and like you progressively, I don't want to say you got more mad, but you got more invested in the situation. So like how was it for you?
So I don't know if it would have been as big of a thing. I don't know if Make Watts Great Again shared it. Do you guys know if he also shared the text thread?
He might have put it in a story or something.
I didn't see him post it, but I know that someone else put it in their story, and then someone else saw that story and shared that story with me.
I put it in my story, but then people freaked out on me, and I was just like, I'm not trying to deal with it because I was already dealing with a lot. But it was up for like 15 hours or something like that.
Well, like, so I see this text, and I'm literally dumbfounded. And the biggest thing that I want to keep pointing out is that there's people that have great people and have good morals and understand being kind to your neighbor. There's people that make mistakes. We all also fit in this category. No one's perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, and that's just life. But there's people that I think just naturally have something going on with them inside, and they need to take a deep look and really think like, okay, this is not right. It's not acceptable. So I see the text. There's just literally blowing up Chandler for feeling a way that when this word was said to black people in the past and still to this day is a negative connotation and is a very hateful word. They just call him like an idiot. Yeah. And he got upset like, oh, how dare you call me an idiot? They called him the worst word they could possibly call him and had no remorse for it. And that's what I think was the biggest thing. If Jessica Griffith had said that word thinking, maybe she was just ignorant to the word and thought, oh, it's not that big a deal, I'm going to say it. And then Chandler goes, and I can't believe, you said this. I can't believe no one's backing me up. Then she goes, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it.
What any human being would do, you would think.
Well, let me tell a story. So it's a be short story. But growing up, my best friend was black. His name's Nolan. He's still my best friend. And we used to say the word all the time. Like, it's just how we communicated. Like, we talked, we just did. Like, we talk like that, right? I never really thought anything of it because it was like saying dude almost for us. And again, he's a black guy, and that's just how we talked. One day, I was pretty young, like maybe 12 or 13. We were pretty young. His cousin was with us, and I said the word, and his cousin was not cool with it. He was like, you can't say that. And at first, I was like, no, like, Nolan's fine with it, And he was like, nah, you can't. And from there on, I was like, I'm sorry. And I've like, since I was 12 years old, I've never used the word again, And so like so I have that memory lodged in my head while I'm reading this. And I'm like, you're 20 something years old.
Yeah.
And you are getting upset at someone for being offended by this word. Like it blew my mind.
And
blew
then,
my mind.
Yeah. And so like having the zero remorse and keep going at it until another adult. These people are grown people.
Yeah.
You're not a teenager. You're not like, I made a mistake at middle school and I said the wrong word and then you get a slap on the wrist. Like you're a grown adult that knows the meaning of this word, that knows how powerful it is, and you want to say it. And I understand that people might say it in their small groups. If you have like that, we're not going to get into that. Like that's whatever you say behind closed doors. Apparently, it's up to you. Hopefully, it has good meaning behind it. But I don't think it had good meaning behind it when she said the word, and then she attacked him for being defensive of that word.
And
so I
there's
think that was the biggest thing.
Big group of people too. It's not like it was just them two.
And so one thing I really want to point out before we even go further with that conversation is that that's part of the issue, and that's why a lot of things are happening in society right now because there's no blanket statement. Not all cops are bad, but is there things going on that don't add up? And like statistically, like black people are being more targeted and being more unjustly arrested and getting longer sentences, and like there's a lot of things going on. But when people go and they don't want to acknowledge it and go like, oh, it'll work out, then that's only going to keep the issue from happening. That's only going to have it keep going. So when everyone, I don't know how many people were in this group text, but everyone kept kind of just chatting about whatever the initial context was, then yeah, no wonder it's going to like keep happening and make Chandler feel like a loner and like isolated, and like make him question, and not only question like, okay, these are my friends, and like question people that he interacts with, because who knows who really feels this way, but also like it messes with your insanity. When people tell you, when you're gaslighting someone and you tell someone how to like, don't think that way, especially when it's something that's very not like very, very deeply emotional, like that is not the way to treat someone, and someone can literally go crazy off of that.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I want to really point out, is that just like there's a lot more to what they did than
Yeah. And I had conversations with people that were like so mad at me for posting it, being like, how dare you try and ruin Jessica's life? How dare you do this? Like, she's a good person. And I was like, have you ever met her? Like, do you even know? They're like, no, but I follow her online. And I'm like, well, you don't know her. I've met her before. Mm-hmm. We were in Hawaii for 2 weeks together, right?
And you don't have to bring this up, but what were your thoughts of her?
She seemed like a fine person, but like...
You say fine,
yeah.
Not a good person?
I couldn't see myself being around her very much.
Okay.
You know? Like, she never did anything that made me not like her, but very about me. Kind of person, right?
And as a coach, one thing, like, I try to make everyone feel special when they come in the door and stuff, but like there's some people that come in the door and like instantly, like, my heart starts to, like, not I'm in love with them. Like, my heart starts to, like, get, I start to get so much happier because I'm like, oh, what's up, Jessica? Jessica always has a smile on her face, naturally, like, it's infectious. So I think, not to say that that's what a good person is, like, that's like an amazing person, but I see what you're saying in the sense of, like, if I don't see him again, I don't see him again.
Yeah. And so it was interesting because it was so crazy that these people were messaging me and so upset about this, but they had never they have never messaged me before, right? They apparently have been following me for a very long time. They've never messaged me before, haven't said anything about the current situations that are going on. And then they get this mad to where they were calling me names. They were mad. And there was a few of them because I posted, all I did was post it. I didn't say anything. I just said CrossFit needs to change.
Yeah.
Right? And I had conversations. And they were like, oh, so you think she's a racist? And I was like, no, I never called her a racist, first off. I said, this is how because we were talking, and I said in one of the texts, I was like, this is how racism persists. It's like, it's these little things where there's a popular, in all the protests you hear, silence is violence. And it's when people aren't speaking up, when those little things, I don't like the word microaggressions because I just think it's kind of cheesy, but like when those little microaggressions are those little things that you don't think much of, as a white dude, you don't think much of, but then obviously Chandler, it was a big deal for him, right? But like when you don't speak up, that's how it persists. Because then, say if there was a super racist person in that text thread, they're like, oh, these people are cool with me being the way I am, and like you never know. So like this is one of the things I've been working on. Is like if I see that stuff, I'm gonna call it out. I don't care who the person is, I don't care how much I respect the person. Like that's like when people are talking about racism, they're thinking of like the old videos of Martin Luther King and like people getting hosed down with water hoses and like all this stuff. But it's like, that's not what's going on now because people are smarter now.
Yeah.
So they're able to be racist under the covers, and they're able to be racist in like certain words they say that might not be racist, but they're still racist. I have to sneeze.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I think that's kind of what, like, how I felt. And I was like, if I see something like this, I'm going to call it out. If it was, towards someone that has different religious beliefs, someone that is taken differently, even if it wasn't, even if it was like another person that just brought it up and they're telling this person to stop feeling that, like, it was so hateful towards that person. It was like, I think was the biggest issue. So even though Chandler was black, so it can be tied in as racist if you want to see it that way. Maybe you don't. That's fine. But at the end of the day, that behavior itself is not acceptable.
Like even if it wasn't a racist term and they said something like, "You're an idiot" or something, and he was like, "Hey," or maybe not even calling him an idiot, but like, "Hey, that makes me feel a certain way," and then both of them just start attacking the person who's hurt their feeling. Like you hurt their feelings. Like that's just a crappy thing to do as a person.
Something's wrong with you.
Why would you do that? But then on top of it, that wasn't what it was. It was a race thing.
Yeah.
So, and especially with where the world is right now, it just blows my mind how you can be so disconnected and like feel like with Travis, like, oh, that it really bothered me. Like being like, oh, I have too much white privilege. That's such a douchey thing to say. I'm sorry, but like it's so douchey. And I know that he's made a response or whatever, and I like commented on it. And I know, let's see, I'm just gonna read it because I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. But
I didn't know originally that he had doubled down after the whole conversation and then decided to make the apology. So he like posted on Instagram or something saying like more about the topic.
Yeah, kind of. He was responding. There was a guy that's I guess friends with Chandler. but he doesn't have a super huge Instagram. But I saw it because someone, I think my friend Jumpman Jay, who's also a black man, he's a black police officer.
Yeah, yep.
And he posted about it. And he was like, and I was like, what's this, right? It was on his story. And then I went to this guy, doesn't have many followers. I don't even really know how to find him anymore. But he's friends with him, and he was mad. And, like, Travis was commenting on his post and kind of being like, basically saying, like, you're ridiculous, like, I didn't do anything wrong kind of thing, right? So there's that. But then then Travis goes and posts, I thought this was a little messed up because he posts a picture of him and Chandler together, right? And he says, I didn't realize how long it was, but it's pretty long. But it says, I've offended a lot of people by defending a phrase I will not repeat. I do not mean any harm by defending this phrase, but I've realized now it was harmful and very insensitive. That blows my mind because you are a grown adult, but whatever. I apologize for the insensitivity of my comments. I am completely devastated over the many great people I have lost as friends over these texts. I hope in time you can see that by my actions that I can change for the better. Thank you to all the people that have been brutally honest with me. I respect people that are honest with me, and I hope everyone can continue being honest with me. I'm not someone who ever sugarcoats, and I don't expect that from you. It'd be easier for me to try and hide from everything coming my way right now, but that's not what I want to do. It shouldn't be easy. I definitely made a mistake, which you've all seen. It is the result of a larger issue, and that's my lack of sensitivity and understanding, which I plan on improving. I want an opportunity to prove I can be better. I hope you can forgive me for this, or at least I can earn your forgiveness in time as I become a better human. I know this type of apology doesn't really do much, but it's a start. From here, I need to be better. I'm talking to the smartest people I know, doing research, listening and starting with myself to become more informed and just an all-around better guy. Kind of like training. If you want to change, it's going to take a lot of time and practice, but I'm willing to put in the work. Sorry for the awful comparison, but fitness is what I understand best. Much love, Travis. Right? And so, a pretty long apology. And so I commented and I said, more than these words, actions will speak louder. I hope you post more about these problems and share your experience in learning. I think that it could be helpful for many. Right? And so, just again, do I think that people need to be canceled? No, but it's like at some point, it's like someone's not going to learn, and so I'm just curious to see like what he does from there. But like, it's just hard for me when people are like, I didn't know. I'm like, come on, man. How do you not know? Like you said, I'm too white privileged. Like you obviously know about that term. So you're telling me you know about that term, but you don't know why this term is a bad thing. Like I'll admit, like when I was in school and stuff, I didn't learn much about, I was actually thinking about this a lot. Like I learned barely anything about slavery. Like we watched Roots and that was about it. And then I learned barely anything about the civil rights movement. You learn about Martin Luther King Jr. a little bit, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. So even with that tiny bit of schooling that I had, I know that that's a word I shouldn't be saying as a 27-year-old man, right? And I think he's around my same age. So I'm just like, no, just take, like, I feel like you should take ownership and be like, I was being a crappy person.
And I, to be honest, I'm less offended of the use of the N-word. I'm more offended by the attacking of Chandler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because again, Jess's defense, not that it still like makes her right, is that like it wasn't directed towards Chandler. In the context, it was used to be like, "What? That's dude, that's crazy."
Yeah.
So that's like she didn't like say to Chandler. It wasn't deliberately used as a negative or an offensive thing. But the fact that he then said this thing and they defended himself, and then they defended the word and attacked him is what the thing that really set me off. Mm-hmm. I think if she would have apologized for the word, I think it would have been nothing. I think so many people would have forgiven her. Some people would have maybe had a decent time, but
people probably wouldn't have even known about it. Like,
it wouldn't have blown up.
The text thread probably would have never been shared. They probably wouldn't have gotten kicked off of Misfit. Maybe they would have taken them off that group chat or something, or maybe Chandler might have left on his own because he wasn't happy there or whatever, which sucks still. But it's just, it's the doubling down on the stupidity that I just don't understand. And that's where I'm a pretty empathetic person. I feel like I try and understand where people are coming from, and I can kind of understand maybe her thinking. I'm not saying it to him. I'm saying it's a good thing. Like she was trying to congratulate someone with using the word, which is ridiculous. But I can understand where you're coming from. But then the second someone says hey, that's not cool, especially a black dude, it's super easy to be like, I'm super sorry. again, I think it says something that she's so comfortable using that with that amount of people in the group chat. Like, I don't understand how someone could be that comfortable with it. But yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. This has all happened in a week.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason I wanted to bring all this stuff up is because all of this stuff is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, like the whole thing we wanted to talk about was this mass like, exodus, I guess you could call it, of CrossFit gyms leaving, right? And I think a lot of that is people heard about this issue that we were just talking about. They know about Greg Glassman over the past years has done so many things that they're like, I don't know about this. And then there's the tweet, and then there was the whole other thing with
how he treats his affiliate people.
Yeah, how he treats his affiliate owners. But then there was that other article that was written by another guy. Yeah. I'm not going to go too deep in that, but he was an affiliate owner, 10 years, went on a Zoom call with a group of people that they've been doing, Zoom calls with affiliates. An affiliate owner from Minneapolis was asking Greg to himself, like, why haven't you guys spoken up about this? Like, what do you guys think about this? And then he goes on this whole rant about how he doesn't mourn George Floyd, and he says that, I guess, a bunch of times. And these are all people that are paying this man thousands and thousands of dollars. And so, again, it's that, too. Like, people saw that happening. All of those things combined are why people are like, yeah, I'm done.
And now that I think about it, the fact that the organization, which is him, was so quiet on social media, but then apparently he's in these Zoom chats saying all these things, and it's like, oh, well, then I guess we know what your thoughts are right now, and we don't align with those, so here it is. So it's like, I guess we can only take you being a jerk for so long on Twitter, but then when it comes down to you actually, doing the right thing, or, whatever people want to believe.
It's that whole thing, like, with just text, you can be as polarizing as you want, but then when you see someone doing it to someone's face, it's like, whoa, like, no, we don't do that, like...
Yep.
Face-to-face, even if it's online face-to-face, it's still going to do so much more than hearing people's texts,
What do you guys think as far as, like, moving forward from here, right, with all the gyms that are leaving? I think so these are my thoughts. I think the only way CrossFit can remain a company, because, I mean, everyone's leaving, right? Reebok left, Rogue left. Pretty much any sponsor with CrossFit
Rogue
is gone, right?
Is considering leaving. I mean, they're still like, hey, we're open for things to change, but they're like...
Yeah, but I mean, there has to be some big changes, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
exactly.
with all of those things, I think the only way I could see them salvaging CrossFit, the brand, is one, obviously, Greg Glassman leaving.
Yeah.
I think that's like the start.
Yeah.
But then, like, from there, I don't really know where they go from there. Because, like, again, like I've said, these CrossFit gyms, Dark Side, your gym, like, you guys don't need the branding. Like, you're going to be fine probably without it. And, like, for the most part, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but, like, for the most part, CrossFit gyms that pay them, like, that's pretty much all they get is that they're able to use the CrossFit branding, and then they can do the open there. Like,
and if you're lucky, maybe Dave Castro will come by, and do some stuff in his story.
Yeah, and kind of talk about himself a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you mean his actual Instagram? So I'm talking about the time he came to our. I actually walked into our affiliate like unannounced and kind of like was talking to the owner for a second, and kind of really just like popping his head in. And he's like, we should do like some certs here, and we should we used to do them a long time ago at this location. Let's do them again. And it's kind of like he just wanted to keep good will with CrossFit. But
he came by Dark Side once and like snapped some blurry photos, super blurry, and put them in his story. And I was like, "Thanks, dude."
Yeah.
I wonder what he's gonna say. Yeah. I wonder what he's gonna do.
If
you think he's just gonna just be quiet until the destruction?
I wouldn't put it beyond him.
Well, I mean, I honestly do feel bad for him because I know that for him the CrossFit Games was like his baby, and I know that. Like they're like, as we all know, they're kind of two different things.
But I don't know how much better CrossFit would be if Dave Castro was in charge.
Well, no, I'm not saying
he has the same, doesn't care what people think.
Yeah, I'm not saying
rage.
I'm not saying that he should take over CrossFit.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is that Greg Glassman has never really liked the CrossFit Games. Like he just hasn't. He's never really liked the CrossFit Games, and so Dave Castro kind of just got screwed with all the stuff that has happened. And so, I mean, I do kind of feel bad for him. Again, everyone has their own thoughts on him in particular. But like, I think the bare minimum is Greg Glassman has to leave. But I mean, there has to be some serious changes that are made.
And I think I'm very curious to see what happens. But I feel like I would believe he has so much money that he doesn't need to like sell it and try to like salvage it. So like, I wonder if he's going to just let what's the phrase, like captain always sinks with the ship or something like that or whatever.
That's what I think. Honestly, like if you were to ask me to bet on it, I'd be like, he's going to run it to the ground. He's not going, like, it doesn't seem like he's someone that's going to want to give it away, right? He's not going to really want to sell it. I don't see like that's like, it's not like it's just some company. Like this is him. Like this is who he is.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like it's like some company he started that he's like tried to get it to be a certain point so he could sell it and make a bunch of money. Like that's not what this is to him. And so that's why I'm like, I don't see him leaving.
And it's hard because like what other fitness regiment is like so entrenched with a corporation like CrossFit? You know, like if you go, I'm going to do powerlifting. It's like you don't have some licensed powerlifting gym that you go to that pays the powerlifting organization $3,000 to remain a powerlift. You know what I mean? Like you go to whatever gym you want and you go, all right, I'm going to do these lifts. I'm going to follow this program I got online by this coach or whatever. And you powerlift. And then you go and you do the USAPL and you try to compete. That's powerlifting, right? Or with weightlifting, you find a gym that's okay with weightlifting. Well, maybe you do some Bergener, whatever, and then you do USAWL and you weightlift. CrossFit's like, okay, I want to do CrossFit. So if I want to compete in the open, that means what I have to do is I have to sign up for a CrossFit gym. If I don't sign up for a CrossFit gym, I have to make sure I film it and then I send it to the, you know what I mean? Like it's like all centered around this one organization, this one corporation, whereas all these other fitness regimes are kind of like,
well, and that's the thing is like it doesn't need to be.
And that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
Even if the name CrossFit, if Greg Glassman decides to bring it to the ground, like the USA Functional Fitness, USAFF, is already like a Olympic certified thing. They've just been trying to get more support because they haven't had a lot of support because CrossFit exists. But like, that's an organization that already exists. USAFF.
Grid
was around for a little bit. Yeah. But it's like what I see is a decentralization of competitive functional fitness that will be only better for the sport in general, where people will still be looking for this cross-training method through specific gyms. You have powerlifting gyms. You have Westside Barbell. You have all these things that are known for what they are. I just think that it probably will not be under the name CrossFit.
Well, and that's another good thing I kind of took from what you just said is like when the open happens, everyone does the open. And then before it kind of like I don't feel like it has been the past couple of years. Like before it was like this huge thing. Everyone in the gym did the open. Yeah. All day Friday nights. It was awesome. And it's kind of like, okay, well now all your superstars in your gym can't make it to regionals. They have to go to these away competitions. So it's kind of like, okay, well now we're kind of just doing the same thing we always do, but we're hyping it up 5 nights, 5 Fridays in a row, and it's not the same. Whereas before, it's like, again, you have like a team trying to make it. It's like, okay, then you can all kind of rally against that thing. But I feel like what I've seen and what I understand and the way I kind of approach it now, it's like over the past few years, it's not like I used to, when I first started CrossFit, it was like competitive, go hard, lift heavy, max out. And I very quickly learned that's not the way to always go about getting fitter.
Yeah.
But especially for the gen pop of the gym, a lot of people don't care. A lot of people don't care if you do a muscle up. Like I don't, like when I program for my gym, I don't program a lot of muscle ups and I program a lot of handstand walks and I program a lot of these things. Like I will program them in there because people want them, people want to do them, and then from there we'll like kind of have alternatives. But it's never like, you have to get a muscle up. It's going to be in the open this year. If you don't get one, you're going to be so pissed off and you're going to do the same thing again next year and you're still not going to get it. So So it's like, it's very...
Yeah, I mean, I do think that in the future, I think someone will try and rise up and make like a...
Rogue.
Yeah, like Rogue might make the Rogue Fitness Games or whatever. You know what I mean? Because
and they're going to do it better than...
I can't imagine... The infrastructure is already there.
Yeah.
The athletes are already there. There's people... it's not the biggest sport in the world, but there are spectators. Me and John are definitely just spectators. Like,
I mean, you got Nike.
Yeah, there are the infrastructure is there, so someone just needs to put their banner on it. Really, is kind of all that needs to happen. So I'm just curious to see what happens because I know a lot of athletes have been like, I'm not going to compete at the games, which I feel bad for them, but it's like, it is what it is. That's
Yeah.
what happens when a CEO goes crazy on Twitter.
I wonder if Reebok would take it because they already have like the. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if they saw eye to eye when they were in this relationship, but like they already kind of had like the ins and outs of what probably had to happen between the two of them. So I wonder if they wanted to be the one to be like, okay, yeah, we kind of have seen this behind the scenes and know what goes on. Let's
Yeah.
be easy transition.
I wonder. I mean, you've already got the crazy thing is like you've got these like you got Rich Froning who already as soon as they said okay we're not going to do it at Madison anymore and we're going to cut the teams, he already went great. We'll do teams in Cookeville, and he's already put on he's got this like teams competition going on that's going to be like games level, like. So there already are like I think there's an opportunity for the big gyms who have a lot of extra money to really like rally together, even if just temporarily, right? Like if it's not a permanent solution, you can all go back to making sure your gym is better than every other gym. But like for a season, like rallying together and making these awesome competitions, you already have Loud and Live who puts on events like Wadapalooza and these crazy like. Wadapalooza
is
has
so awesome.
bigger hype than the
Yeah.
games in some circles. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and so it's like I see this
Something will-
getting away from
Yeah.
the centralization of CrossFit. I see as a good thing. It's going to be a very painful path to get there.
I wonder how Matt O'Keefe's doing because I know he just he recently took over like Wadapalooza and Granite Games, but like they didn't happen, or then the SoCal one,
Yeah.
but they haven't happened. So I
Rest in
wonder
peace.
if like what his thought process is, and I wonder if he has the ability to bring the capital and or bring other people into the business.
O'Keefe-
Like, hey guys, let's all go in and let's take over CrossFit and let's make it a board and make smart decisions
Yeah.
and not let
One
one
person.
big-headed guy at the
Yeah.
top try to do it all.
O'Keefe is someone who could run with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If O'Keefe partners with Rogue, and he's already got Matt Frazier, who is a Rogue athlete, you know what I mean? Like,
And Tia.
and Tia, like, the connections are already there. Like, he could. He's in a
Yeah.
position that could do it. And then, like I said, the big gyms, the Bergerons, the Fronings, the people who have this, like, it's not hopeless by any means.
No, it's definitely not hopeless. And I think that, well, it's just one of those things we just have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to wait and see. All right, bro. Well, this has been longer than we thought it was going to be.
I thought it was shorter than it was going to be. I thought we were going to be having a long topic. This is perfect. We get one of everything pretty much.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to say?
I mean, if I could finish off with anything, just make sure you don't put anyone in a blanket statement. It's like, and the biggest thing is, so I mentioned Ben Shapiro, like kind of towards the beginning of the podcast. It's like, I was listening to one of his videos on the way here. And did I necessarily agree with his outlook? No. But when I have that kind of perspective, it allows me to then think about my perspective even more and then have more of a reason behind it and more back behind it, or maybe you don't, depending on whatever the topic is. It could be anything in life, but just always understand both sides, because if you go and say, no, my side, look at all these things on my side. Everyone goes, look at all these things on my side. Well, okay. Like,
Yeah.
what, how are we going to actually have a conversation about the all of it versus me just shout at you my side and I close my ears on your side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, bro.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me.